Hi everybody. The subject of today's discussion would be Marvel Legends 3-pack Family Matters. It contains the Maxima family, in other words, Magneto, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver. So these guys came all packaged together since it was a 3-pack, and it's one of those rare moments when Hasbro actually puts a lot of figures in one package, and it's an exclusive to Amazon. So let's take a look at Magneto first. Now Magneto comes with his helmet is not removable. He comes with some magnetic effects that can be attached to his wrists, and we have already seen these kinds of effects with many different figures from Marvel Legends. Always being packaged with some of the particular characters and in different colors. So they're very easy to attach and remove, and they feel they're made of softer rubber. Now, Magneto himself, many people complain actually about the way this Magneto came out, and I honestly don't see what the problem is. I still think they specifically mention the facial expression is not the best one, and so forth and so forth. I actually like the way he turned out. I think he looks pretty good, and the figure itself doesn't look bad at all when I think about it. I didn't really notice anything as far as I'm concerned, and my standards are obviously different than some other reviewers out there, but I honestly don't see much wrong with him. I just like the way he is, and especially the costume that was chosen. This is his classic costume that was also seen in the 90s X-Men cartoon series, and I think he looks pretty good. Now, I won't go too much into the articulation story because, well, so many people are talking about that. I just wanted to show the figure itself, just how it looks, and what kind of accessories does it come with. So let's just move them aside a little bit. I'll show you some of the things that he comes with, aside from the those magnetic effects. So he also comes with an alternate head. It is pretty much the same, except of course the facial expression. Let's just try and open it a little bit. There we go. He has a very angry looking face underneath it, with his teeth gnashing out. So again, I don't see anything wrong with this one either. People nitpick at it. Again, the way the facial expression is, they're not supposedly that doesn't really capture the character, and so forth and so forth. But for me personally, I think this is a pretty good representation of Magneto when he gets ticked off. So again, that's just my opinion. I don't find anything wrong with it. People expect a lot from Marvel Legends. They always expect top-notch everything, and honestly, some of these figures look far better, in my opinion, than some of the older versions out there. But these particular three, I think they look just fine as they are. Now, the other things Magneto came with are the alternate hands. They look like the hands that are in the motion of controlling the magnetic pulses. So there is that as well. So yeah, that would be as far as his accessories go. Now I will show you some other, let's just put them aside for a moment. I'll show you some of the other Magnetos I have from Marvel Legends, and these are from Toy Biz. So from way back in the day. This particular Magneto is not based on comic book, not that I can remember that he ever wore a costume like this. But he comes from the Marvel Legends X-Men Classic series that was made by Toy Biz around 2005 period. So they released numerous X-Men characters in about a couple of waves, and this version of Magneto came out. I can't quite remember It's been a while. I can't quite remember what this thing on his shoulder is supposed to be, because each of the X-Men characters and their opponents in the classic series came with some kind of a gimmick, or shooting plastic darts or what have you. But they do have the articulation of the early Marvel Legends, so that is what sets them apart from the 90s versions of Marvel characters who had very limited articulation. The only thing that's kind of wrong about this Magneto is the fact that he's a little bit too short. However, he does have a removable helmet, so that's a nice touch compared to the, let's say, this particular one, who is definitely a nice figure, but unfortunately you cannot remove the helmet. And of course, as I may have forgotten to mention, you also cannot remove helmet from this alternate head either. But in the case of this vintage Magneto, yes, you can. And the helmet, unfortunately, is not made of any sturdy material. It's just very, very soft rubber. So, but at least it makes it easier to put it back on his head and to remove it, so one doesn't have to struggle too much to remove it or to put it on. So I will put him right next to Magneto, the present one right here. Of course, there is other Hasbro Magnetos out there, and I don't have any of those. This one is actually more than enough. I'm not really aiming to get every single version of him. I like this one a great deal. And of course, I do like the Toy Biz ones as well. Now, this is the oldest Marvel Legends Magneto that I have. Actually, he came with a plastic stand. He was released at the very early days of Toy Biz Marvel Legends, so in early 2000s. And he came in two different packages. First of all, he came as a single figure. And then, aside from that, he also came in a multi-pack with Wolverine, Rogue, Gambit, and Beast, I believe. So, this was the earliest attempt of Magneto in Marvel Legends, again wearing his classic costume just like the Hasbro one. And this version of Magneto again has a removable helmet, and this time it's not the soft plastic, it's a bit sturdier. And Magneto looks pretty good. Now, back in those days, the Marvel Legends didn't really had a whole lot of alternate heads switching or the hands or anything like that. The only one that I can recall that did have the feature that you can put an alternate head was the Weapon X Wolverine from the Toy Biz Marvel Legends. But other than that, most of them did not. So now this is again a neat feature that you can remove his helmet. So and reveal the face. It's a pity that this one cannot do that. But the costume is pretty much the same. The articulation is, of course, dated compared to the modern one, to the modern update. But it still looks rather well for its time. It has a nice big spacious cape. The cape is not removable, and of course it's not removable in the case of the Hasbro one. But again, just another, this is probably the best representation of Magneto in this particular costume that I would say looks the best on him. I noticed there were so many color variations of him, and some of them, or actually most of them, don't really do it for me. This classic version does. So I'll just put him for a second. I'll try and squeeze them in. Maybe I'll just yank that Magneto out and fit the two of them. There we go. So we can see them side by side. One thing to notice, they're about the same height, almost. Although the Toy Biz one is a little bit keeling over because he's a little bit top heavy. But each of them has its own good points, of course. Even though there is a difference between them in a couple of years difference at least when each of them was made. And of course, here we go with the classics one as well. So that would be Magneto. The Toy Biz X-Men Legend, Toy Biz X-Men Legends Classics, the Family Matters Magneto, and then finally the Marvel Legends Toy Biz Magneto. So we're gonna move on next to Scarlet Witch, or Wanda Maximoff as she's known by. This is the version that came in the box set. So this is her pretty much in her classic attire, classic costume. She only comes with this rubbery bendable magic effects that can be attached onto her hands and the arms. Other than that, there is no alternate head or anything like that. No alternate hands, which is a pity. I wish there were. But I think they got her face pretty well, actually. The sculpting is top notch. I can see that. And all these intricate details, the way the hair was sculpted. She comes with a curled up cape. The usual amount of articulation one would expect in Marvel Legends, and like I said, the only minor complaint is that there is no alternate hands. I wish there were. I know she mostly uses magic in her fights, but I would rather like to see that she also came with a pair of fisted hands, so she can knock some of the bad guys out. But I think she still looks pretty good. She's definitely far superior to the old vintage Marvel Legends version of Scarlet Witch, which I don't have, but that particular one, for those of you that know which one I'm talking about, was a rather horrendous attempt at making her, and it was a total disaster. But since that time, this is one of the two Scarlet Witch figures that Hasbro made. So this would be the latest one, and the one before it, I will show you in a minute, came with the Odin Allfather Build-A-Figure a couple of years back, and that would be a more comic book based Scarlet Witch with a slight modification of her costume, although more or less it is the same one, but definitely the two of them have some differences in the costume, the way it's represented. Now, this Scarlet Witch is much taller than the other one. The other one was scaled down, and this one comes with the magic effects, quite different from hers, and her head is larger, or it looks that way because of her hair, and the articulation is more or less the same. She also comes with a very neat looking cape that's not removable, or it could be removable, I guess, if you pop the head off. Now the thing is that I noticed lately when it comes to female Marvel Legends figures, that the initial figures of the females, Scarlet Witch being one of them, were rather tall. Now, in the later attempts of reissuing some of these characters, they started to scale them down. I am not really sure why is there such a sudden change of scaling them down. Maybe they thought they are too tall compared to the other characters, and honestly, I don't really have any kind of an official Marvel chart to see which characters out there in Marvel Universe are tall, or whatever is their actual original height and whatnot. But I don't mind the height of either of them, although if you ask me, I kind of prefer this one. She is a bit taller, and I kind of would have thought she would be a bit taller in appearance. Now, when it comes to sculpting, I would say it's a little bit of a tough choice. I actually like both of these, but I would say she kind of wins by just a smidge, especially because of her face, the way it was done, and the head was a little bit scaled down to fit the proportions of her body, while her head looks somewhat slightly bigger than it should be, but the body and everything else is sculpted quite well. So yeah, there is a slight advantage with this one. Now, Scarlet Witch has been already in the MCU movies, in several of them, and pardon me. Presently, she has a TV series with Vision on Disney Plus. So, the MCU version of Scarlet Witch I don't have at this present time, and I'm sort of not that much into the MCU versions of Marvel characters. I do have a few. Don't get me wrong. I do have some, but just not everybody. Because at the scale of those figures, they're sort of a little bit too short. They're even, I mean, they're even shorter than these average figures. So that's probably one reason why I kind of avoided getting more of them. As I said, I do have a few, and I'm not too impressed with the version of the costume that's used for Scarlet Witch in the movies. Maybe I expected too much, but I kind of thought they would use maybe a costume something similar to this one right here, rather than this. So something like this. But maybe they thought it's just not plausible to present her in a costume like that, although I think she would look great if they did use it. So, other than that, that's about it that I can tell about the Scarlet Witch. So, both figures look great, that is to be sure. It's just that there is a slight advantage on the 3-pack one. And then the last part of this video would be to talk a bit about the last figure in the 3-pack, and that would be Quicksilver, Pietro Maximoff. So there he is. Now, he came with only some alternate hands, because the ones he have, let's take a closer look there. The ones he have are the fisted ones. He has, again, a great deal of articulation, and the head may have been used from a Peter Parker Spider-Man, one of the Spider-Man figures that were released earlier, a while back. The one thing I guess I'll have to agree with other reviewers out there is that his head does seem to be a little bit too big for his body. I mean, proportionately speaking, it seems rather large for some reason. I'm not sure why. But if I ignore that fact, I think he still looks pretty good. Other than the size of the head, which is a little bit out of proportion. He also is wearing his classic costume, although there is also times when he would wear this costume in green, again with the white lightning across it. Now the white lightning here, as it's zigzagging across his chest, there is some little imperfections here and there where the white color did not go on well and it just started to chip off, or it didn't paint quite well. And it's also noticeable right here as well. But again, those are just minor details. I still think he doesn't look that bad. And of course, you can pose him in a running pose. He's also showing up in the WandaVision TV series, and he was, of course, in the Avengers movie, Age of Ultron. He comes with these alternate hands that can be switched with the ones he got there. This would be ideal for his running pose, or to give somebody a slap on the face. Either way. So yeah, that's all he came with. Now, I do have only one figure I can compare him with, and that's an earlier Marvel Legends Quicksilver figure that dates back to about 2007, 2008. And this is how that figure looks like. This was again sticking with the same color scheme and everything. Articulation is a bit inferior compared to the newer one, but still not a bad figure, if you ask me. The hands could have been done better because, well, that was the issue with some of the Toy Biz figures and some of the early Hasbro attempts at Marvel Legends, that the palms of the hands and the side of the hands were just not aligned very well with the fingers, so it looked pretty awkward. But I mean, other than that, he looks alright. The pity was that there was no possibility of having alternate hands back then, so he had overly articulated hands, and The problem with that is that he couldn't even curl up his hands into fists. So this one would be a vast improvement. Now, however, between the two of them, I prefer this head, because this is how Quicksilver looks in the comics. So this head comes much closer to his comic book look than the other one. So I prefer this head, and I guess some customers will probably use this head on that body. Now, you can tell that even the hairstyle and the head are just not the same. Everybody is interested, including myself, that he has these, I wouldn't call them really hair horns, but it's just wavy hair as he's running fast. So this was always the way he was represented in the comics, while this newer one is actually lacking all that. Or even if it is there, it's barely noticeable, I guess here and maybe here. So yeah, this one definitely has a better, well, not just the hairstyle, the better looking head compared to him. So yeah, and in the case of this older version, the head is more proportionate to the body. So that would be the only comparison I can offer between for the Quicksilver here. Now, this older version also had a variant which was in green instead of blue. That one I don't have, but it will be practically the same exact figure, just in a different color scheme. So yeah, that would be all I can say about the Quicksilver here. So the figure is definitely not bad, not by any means, except for the fact that, well, the head is a little bit too big. Could have been more scaled down. But if I exclude that particular aspect, or that particular complaint, I think he still doesn't look that bad. It's definitely an improvement of the character compared to the older version. So that would be this would be the Family Matters Marvel Legends 3-pack, Amazon exclusive, and that would be all for now, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you again next time. Bye.